Hey, so these are the 64 ways to gain compliance. Let's check it out. Actor takes responsibility. Try to get others to comply by stating your willingness to help them or even work on the request yourself. That is, try to gain their compliance by offering to do it yourself as a means of getting them to do what you want. Example, is there anything I can do so you can finish the project on time? This is definitely sneaky. So getting others to do what you want by offering to do it with them. Alter casting negative. That's kind of projecting identity on others. I don't think most people know that word. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that only a bad person would not do what is wanted. Although I have to say that most people are very, very rough alter casters. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that only a person with negative qualities wouldn't comply. Yeah. Example, you should stop watching these type of television shows as only a disturbed person would like them. Yeah, but people tend to use much, much, much harsher words. Alter casting positive. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that a good person would do what is wanted. But essentially all they're doing is that they're trying to mold your personality to their preference. Your identity to their preference. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that any person with positive qualities would comply. You know, a good boy would do what I want, and a bad boy wouldn't. Example, a good boy eats vegetables. Oh my god. I didn't read that far. Yeah, I would say these strategies so far are relatively effective. But people are more likely to defy negative in general. Altruism. Try to get others to comply by asking them to give you a hand out of the goodness of their heart. That is, try to gain their compliance by asking them to be altruistic. Just do it for you. Example, could you help me move? I would really appreciate it. But will they? Assertion. Try to get others to comply by asserting, forcefully stating what you want. That is, try to gain their compliance by commanding them to comply. Go get a band-aid now. Interestingly, that works okay. But might piss people off. Audience use. Try to get others to comply by having a group of other people present when you make your request. That is, try to gain their compliance by asking them in front of other people as a way to back up your request. Yeah, I just pressure them. Example, I asked her to go to the prom with me in front of her friends. Yeah, but people might not like that pressure though. Authority appeal. Try to get others to comply on the basis of the authority that you or other people have. That is, try to gain their compliance by using or relying on a position of power over them to get them to do what you want. Example, my boss told me to get him the reports by 10 a.m., so I did. But first of all, many times people need to also establish themselves as their authority so they can use it above you, use it to affect you. Aversive stimulation. Try to get others to comply by doing things they do not like until they agree to comply. The beatings will continue. That is, try to gain their compliance by bothering them until they do what you want, like nagging. Example, my coworker kept bothering me to quit smoking until I finally did. Really? But it would be far more effective. The problem with aversive stimulation that it just tends to lead to escapism. But that's kind of what its function. Escapism or avoidance. So in this case, it would be far more effective just to avoid the coworker. Bargaining. Try to get others to comply by striking a bargain with them. That is, try to gain their compliance by negotiating a deal where you each do something for the other so everyone gets what they want. Example, if you help me with the dishes, I'll help you with the laundry. Okay, fair enough. This is weak. You should be alter casting them. You know, a good boy would do the dishes. Benefit other. Try to get others to comply by telling them people other than themselves would benefit if they do what you want. That's kind of altruistic. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out how it helps people other than themselves if they comply. Example, by donating to our fundraiser, you ensure that everyone will have a coat this winter. But also, they cannot make that claim, right? You could be the first one. So, yeah. You could be the only one who's just giving like $10 and that's it. Benefit self. Try to get others to comply by telling them you personally would benefit if they do what you want. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out how it helps oneself if they comply. Would that work? If you help me with the artwork, then I won't get a ticket by the city tomorrow. Fair enough. Benefit target. Try to get others to comply by telling them they person would benefit if they do what you want. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out how it helps them if they comply. This is very common. Altercasting, positive altercasting, and positive benefit is very popular. Example, if you go grocery shopping for me tonight, then you will have something for lunch tomorrow. Oh yeah, that's a very sneaky example too, because you're essentially just sending them grocery shopping for kind of like both of you, but you are emphasizing the benefit for them. Challenge. Try to get others to comply by challenging them to do what you want, right? Double dog dare them. That is, try to get their compliance by provoking, stimulating, tempting, goading, or galvanizing them to comply. Example, I didn't want to race until this car pulled beside me and he revved the engine. Yeah, let's go. Could also have a big part in gamification. Compliment. Try to get others to comply by complimenting them on their abilities or accomplishments. Oh yeah. Sucking up to them. That is, try to gain their compliance. Yeah, I kind of hate this. Okay, I'll just keep reading it. By praising them to do what you want. Example, with that jump shot, you would be really good at basketball. Yeah, I hate this. I heard this so fucking much. You can just hear the line like, oh yeah, you're so good with like computers. Fix my computer or something. Like, it just... It's always like, compliment request, compliment request, compliment request. Just, or something like that. And people wouldn't be that eager to be straight talkers with you because they are kind of trying to sell this request, I suppose. Cooperation. Try to get others to comply by being cooperative and collaborating with them. That is, try to gain their compliance by not by telling the other person what to do, but by offering to discuss things and work them out together. Example, we should get the team together and brainstorm with new ideas for this problem. It's essentially just trying to do it with them, I suppose. But what you want. Criticize. Try to get others to comply by criticizing them. Will this work though? That is, try to gain their compliance by attacking them on a personal level to get them to do what you want. Example, it looks like you're really gaining some weight. Why don't you go on a run with me? I guess that could be effective if they're not taking it badly. Then you can just communicate very directly. And this would be effective in that way. Debasement. Try to get others to comply by acting pitiful and pleading. That is, try to gain their compliance by debasing, demeaning, degrading, devaluing, humiliating, or lowering yourself so as to deprive yourself of esteem or self-worth to get them to do what you want. Example, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I deleted the report. Can you please go delay the presentation? People do this quite a bit. Also, in the Altercast section, we got Mended Altercast, which is like reinforcing a role, but you also have Tech Altercast, is more passive in a way of forcing people to accept certain roles. And that is when people tend to act in a certain ways that could trigger others to take a specific role. Examples, when someone tends to be needy, another person is forced to be generous and caring. Yeah. They're not doing it because they can't do it, often, but because they want you to do it. Debt. Trying to get others to comply by reminding them that you are in debt, that they are in debt to you because of things you have done for them in the past. That is, try to gain their compliance by indicating that they owe it to you to do what you want. Example, you should pay for my lunch. I bought your lunch like last time. Okay. But generally, people don't like negativity, even if they owe you. Deceit. Try to get others to comply by misleading them. That is, try to gain their compliance by lying to or deceiving them. Example, we told them the car was in perfect working order, but the transmission is about to go out. Yep, lying does work, I suppose. Direct request. Try to get others to comply by just making a direct request. That is, try to gain their compliance by simply asking or stating what you want without giving any reasons for them to comply. Example, can I use this computer? Okay, this is a bit of a no-brainer though. A disclaimer, norms, rules. Try to get others to comply by downplaying or disavowing restrictions and constraints that might prevent them from doing what you want them to do. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that otherwise applicable procedures, rules, norms, and or expectations should be broken in this instance. Example, you should drive faster than the speed limit. This is an emergency. Okay. But this is more situational, I suppose. No, you should just alter cast constantly. You should drive fast because the good boy would drive fast. A disclaimer, other. Try to get others to comply by downplaying or disavowing the ability of anyone else to do so. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that the other people can help you or do what is needed. Example, I would ask Ted for his help, but we know that he's not a good at presentations. Yeah, but like that doesn't mean you should do it though. Disclaimer self, try to get others to comply by downplaying or disavowing your reasons for asking. That is, try to gain their compliance by indicating that you do not want to make a bad impression, or do you have you have bad intentions. Yeah, but like you're just claiming that. You do not really want to make the request, and you are only doing so reluctantly and or simply have no choice but to make the request. Example, I'm sorry that I'm asking for money. I'm really not a beggar. And try to get others to comply by acknowledging and sympathizing with why they may not want to do so. That is, try to gain their compliance by indicating that you understand, they are aware of their reasons, feelings, abilities, and or that you're sensitive to their needs and concerns, even though you must ask them to do what you want. Example, I know that you are disappointed that you can't go on the trip, but do you mind helping me get the presentation ready? Yeah, this is actually a good example, like all of these, that the only way to really avoid this is to communicate directly. Otherwise, people are just trying to sell you things, essentially. You can have like a car, and you could be the salesman, and like, would you sell the car like, bad car, doesn't work really well, it's overpriced. You can't sell it like that. You have to really wrap the package. You have to wrap the car, I guess. Disclaimer, task. Trying to get others to comply by downplaying that what you are asking them to do. That is, try to gain their compliance by indicating that what you want them to do isn't what they think it is, and you shouldn't pose a problem. It isn't awful, effortful, difficult, or dumb. Yeah, but wouldn't you see that a lot of people just trying to gain your compliance? Example, updating the database shouldn't take that much time. That would be super annoying if someone doesn't know how long it takes. Disclaimer time. Try to get others to comply by downplaying or disavowing being busy as a reason to refuse the request. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that there is or soon will be enough time for them to do what you want. Example, we should go to the store now. You can finish your report later. Damn. Still, so far, the most often used are the compliment, positive alter cast, and positive personal game. Duty. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that it is their duty to do so. Okay. But in order to have that, you need to instill in them a very strong sense of duty. So that's gonna take multiple years of school or possibly a military training. That is, try to gain their compliance by stating they should fulfill obligations, responsibilities, and commitment that they have. But is it something that serves their interest, or is it serving the interest of those who instilled this sense of duty in you? Example, taking out the trash at the end of the day is a part of your job, okay? Equity. I try to get us to comply by on the grounds that is equitable to do so. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that being fair, just, and impartial means they should do what you want. Yeah. So basically, it's just a very, very, very long list of things that why others might want to do what you want. Example, your brother cleaned the house last time. It's your turn now. Okay. Esteem, negative, by others. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that if they do not do so, other people will think worse of them. Wow. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that in the eyes of others, they will be viewed more negatively if they do not do what you want. Example, if you do not go to that college, other people would think you're going to a party school. Oh, but it's worth pointing out that in this case, the only certainty is the person who's speaking, right? The subcultures definitely emphasize what other people think more. Esteem by others. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that if they do so, other people will think better of them. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that in the eyes of others, they will be viewed more positively. Do what you want. Example, if you play football, everyone will think that you're really tough. Oh, man. I got the impression that esteem might be more common in collectivist cultures, and alter casting people is more common in individualistic cultures. More esteem, negative, by actor. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that if they do not do so, you will think worse of them. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that in your eyes, they will be viewed more negatively if they do not do what you want. Example, I would be really disappointed if you went to the party instead of studying. Poor kid is getting roasted. Esteem positive by actor. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that if they do so, you will think better of them. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that in your eyes, they will be viewed more positively if they do what you want. Example, if you went to law school, I would have a new level of respect for you. Parents especially like to abuse this power they have over their kids. And you might observe that if it does not work out, then they tend to be irresponsible about it. It's not going to be their fault. It's going to be the kid's fault, I suppose. Expertise, negative. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that because of the way the world works, okay, unfavorable things will happen if they do not change their behavior. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that in the natural course of things, bad outcomes will occur if they do not do what you want. Example, you will get the flu if you do not get the flu shot. Okay. Fair enough. I think there's a better use of negative here, because it is like a negative by nature instead of negative by them. Expertise, positive. Try to get others to comply by pointing out that because the way the world works, favorable things will happen if they change their behavior. That is, try to gain their compliance by noting that in the natural course of things, good outcomes will occur if they do what you want. Damn. It sounds a little dirty saying it like that. Example, if you work hard at your job, you're sure to get that promotion. That sounds like something your boss would say. One must also ask themselves, are they acting in your best interest? Hinting. Try to get others to comply by pointing around what you want them to do. I hate this. That is, try to gain their compliance by indicating indirectly what you want, hoping they'll figure it out and comply, even though you never came out and really say it. Example, I left the trash by the front door, so them would take it out. It could be more obscure and nebulous than this. And that is because people don't want to be in your debt necessarily, I suppose. So this can mess with the balance because you are not doing them a favor. You're not doing what they want you to do. You're just doing things because you like it. You just figure it out yourself, I suppose. Try to get us to comply for no reason other than you want them to. Okay. That is, try to gain their compliance by telling them to do what you want because you desire it. Example, I want you to go with me to the city. I could appreciate this. I would make the argument that those who are kind of sick of these strategies are probably gonna appreciate a more direct style, because you can see it from a mile away that they wanted to say a certain thing, and they do want to also package it in a way that it makes it well received. Invoke norm. Try to get others to comply by indicating they would be out of step with the norm if they didn't do what you want. It depends on how much others like the norm. That is, try to gain their compliance by prodding them to conform to what others have, do, or desire. For example, everyone is going to the gym after work. Okay. Again, this really depends on their desire to fit in, but I guess this kind of applies to people somewhat. It's up to you. Try to get others to comply by telling them the decision is theirs to make and it's up to them. That is, try to gain their compliance by telling them the choice to comply is up to them. Example, it's up to you to save your money instead of spending it on video games. They don't mean it as such, though. Don't spend your money on stupid video games. Essentially, you kind of like possibly give them two choices, and you make the other choice so much worse, right? Or you hint that it's so much worse. So instead of being ordered around, you kind of give them two choices. One is what you want, and one just sucks. Logical, empirical. Try to get others to comply by making logical arguments. That is, try to gain their compliance through the use of reasoning, evidence, facts, and data. Example, statistics show that non-smokers live longer than smokers. I think it's like smokers already know this. I think it's a big error that people try to deal with emotional problems like thoughts. It's kind of a waste of time. So you're just addicted to smoking at that point. You're kind of have to at that point. If you want to get rid of it, you can maybe try to do some nicotine patches and try to wean yourself off from it. And that's probably gonna lead to the most likely outcome of quitting smoking. And most of have no smokes with you. Moral appeal. Try to get others to comply by appealing to their moral and ethical standards. That is, try to gain their compliance by letting them know what is right and what is wrong. Yeah, but the thing is, society also teaches them what is right and wrong. So you might see a culture teaches the kids, the boys especially, that, there's nothing more glorious than dying in combat. So I'm like, okay. And that is the highest morality. Example, don't buy those shoes. They are made using child labor. Yeah, but that's gotta be all the shoes, right? My concern for you. Try to get others to comply because of your concern for them. That is, try to gain their compliance by referring to your regard for, consideration of, interest in, and feelings for them. Example, please go to the doctor. I'm worried about you. Okay. Nature of situation. Try to get others to comply by being attentive to the situation or circumstances you find yourself in. That is, try to gain their compliance by taking note of their appropriateness of their behavior to the situation and on their appropriateness of your request in the situation. Example, I told my son that the bed was not a trampoline. Oh, okay. Which effectively would be, don't jump on the bed. Okay. But the thing is, this is interesting because an adult might be thinking like, okay, obviously we don't jump on the bed, but the thing you would be thinking, why not? Right? Negative effect. Try to get others to comply by being really, really negative. Okay. Expressing negative emotions, acting really unfriendly, and creating an unappealing impression. That is, try to gain their compliance by acting displeased to get them to do what you want. Example, angrily I told her to put her phone on silent after it went off in class. Okay. But people don't tend to like negative effect and aversive stimuli. So, something to keep in mind. Not seek compliance. No attempt is made to get others to do what you want. That is, no compliance is sought. Example, I didn't ask if I could go out tonight. Yeah, that seems like an obvious strategy. Persistent. Try to get others to comply by being persistent. That is, try to gain their compliance by persevering, continuing in your attempts to get them to do what you want. Example, after asking for over a year, we're finally getting a pool. All right. But I don't like this strategy that much. Well, you can certainly argue that this strategy can be useful just as a mindset of like keeping going in life. But when others are using it on you, you're just trying to hammer at your willpower, at which point you might just give in, right? So they said no, but what if I keep going? Personal expertise. Try to get others to comply by referring to your credibility, your personal expertise. That is, try to gain their compliance based on your experience, know-how, trustworthiness, and judgment. Example, you should get those shoes. I have them and they feel great when running. Okay. Is it expertise in this case? But yeah, fair enough. So this is kind of like a personal recommendation too. Just connecting familiarity and positivity to like brands, that's a big thing. So it might seem super stupid dumb that like you just take some famous guy and they promote like shoes or something and like what's the point of this? But a lot of people like that person and familiar with them, so at that point that is kind of applied to the shoe as well. Positive effect. Try to get others to comply by being really positive, expressing positive emotions, acting really friendly, and creating an appealing impression. That is, try to gain their compliance by charming them into doing what you want. Yeah, that would be far, far more common. Example, she was really happy when she asked for a raise. And then she was told no. It's actually a little bit grim though, because they're not acting positive because they are positive. They're acting positive to get you to do what they want, right? And they might be like gravity or something. So if you're like trapped in their gravity well, then yeah. Pre-giving. Try to get others to comply by doing positive and nice things for them in advance of asking them to do what you want. That is, try to gain their compliance by giving them things they'd like and then only afterwards making your request. Example, oh yeah. Example, I bought my wife flowers, then later asked if I could go fishing this weekend. This is a commonly used strategy with cheap stuff. So they might give you like flowers or something, then ask for a donation. So, yeah. Promise. Try to get others to comply by making a promise. That is, try to gain their compliance by offering to give them a reward or something they would like if they do what is wanted. Example, if you behave in the store, I promise we'll stop for ice cream on the way home. Actually, when it comes to long-term promises, they tend to be pretty abused, right? especially if they are big and long term, then you can make those promises, and you see this exercise then used very, very liberally. So this could be like 5 years or 10 years, and the promise is not fulfilled, but they gained a lot by offering the promise that was obviously false. Promote task. Try to get others to comply by promoting the value and the worth of what you want them to do. That is, try to gain their compliance by identifying one or more positive qualities of the thing you are asking them to do. E.g., what you want them to do is important, meaningful, rewarding, enjoyable. That's a little bit up to them. If you complete this presentation on time, you will be less stressed and you'll get a good grade. Okay. I'm basically just kind of selling them the idea of something, kind of meanifying it. Self-feeling, negative. Try to get others to comply by stating that not doing so will result in an automatic decrease in their self-worth. Really? That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that they will feel worse about themselves if they do not do what you want. That seems a bit manipulative. Example, you will feel bad if you throw all that food away instead of donating it. Really? Does anyone really bother donating their food? Self-feeling, positive. Try to get others to comply by stating that doing so will result in an automatic increase in their self-worth. Really? That is, try to... Yeah, this is more used by brands. This might not count for much, but they can have like a positive identity, kind of reinforced identity. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that they will feel better about themselves if they do what you want. Damn! Them doing what you want is the important part, I suppose. Example, you will feel better if you donate that old coat to charity instead of sending it to the garage sale. No. My favorite one, but like, just do what I want and then you're a good boy. Suggest. Try to get others to comply by offering suggestions about what you want them to do. Yeah. How about give me some money, man? I'm just kind of making fun of the obvious self-serving nature of these suggestions. Try to gain their compliance by subtly proposing an idea that indirectly points out and describes what it is you want them to do. Example, why don't you try the steak instead of the chicken? Yeah. It is important to point out that people don't like to be controlled and manipulated, so that's why people like to be sneaky about it. And although you can be direct, and I think some would appreciate that, but if you just look at the world, yeah, people are getting away with a lot of manipulation. Surveillance. Try to get others to comply by indicating your awareness and observation of what they do. That is, try to gain their compliance by referring to your general vigilance, surveillance, scrutiny, okay, and or monitoring of their behavior. Example, I will find out if you're lying to me about the car accident. Damn. But the problem here, okay, I don't know, this is a little concerning. The thing is, if they can get away from you, then they kind of fix this problem. So they can fix the surveillance problem by getting away from you. And then they're free. Third party, try to get others to comply by having someone else ask them for you. That is, try to gain their compliance by getting someone else to intervene and do it for you. Example, Jane, don't you think Jim should go on that date with the girl from accounting? Would this work so well? I guess this might lead to less of a loss of face, or I don't know. I try to evaluate based on effectiveness as well. I think in the West, the most common parts would be appealing to personal gain, ergo self-interest, and older casting people, which people don't really tend to consider. It's not really in the colloquial vocab. This is the way things are. Try to get others to comply by telling them they have to, because this is just the way things are. I fucking hate this. This would generally mean that there's no good reason to do it. That is, try to gain their compliance by referring to rules, procedures, policies, or customs that require them to comply. But these rules, procedures, policies, or customs just merely reflect someone else's will that they cannot really justify on the spot. They're just like, just do it because I can't think of anything. Example, you should slow down since the speed limit is only 25 miles per hour. Okay, that's kind of a... Still, in this case, it's arbitrary, right? Thought manipulation? Wow. So you do all these things just because you can't mind control people. Try to get others to comply by convincing them that the request you're making is really their own idea. Oh my god! This is kind of a big player thing though. Especially combined with persistence, people might come to think of ideas that they were exposed to as their own idea. That is, try to gain their compliance by having them think that they were the ones who wanted to do it in the first place. Yeah. This is often used with solo techniques. So they come to the realization and they think it's their idea. And they're like, oh yes, I'm gonna do this, my idea. Even though they were kind of nudged into it. Example, we should go on the roller coaster since you wanted to come to that fair in the first place. Threat. Try to get others to comply by threatening them. Yeah, but they might get away from you. That is, try to gain their compliance by saying you will punish them if they do not do what you want. Example, if you go to the bar again tonight, consider us done. Yeah, but this is a bad strategy, because they would just gotta get away from you. Because when it comes to aversive stimuli, I'm calling the threatening person an aversive stimuli, people just escape or avoid them. Value appeal. Try to get others to comply because of important values that compel action in this instance. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing to central and joint beliefs that should guide what they do. Example, since we both care about the ocean, we should volunteer for the cleanup. But they might be faking these values and also not do as much themselves or not do anything at all. Warning. Try to get others to comply by warning them about what they're doing. That is, try to gain their compliance by alerting them to possible negative consequences of their behavior. Example, you might get fired if you stay up all night. This is actually a very interesting thing because often, this might lead to people self-sabotaging because aversive stimuli might just like, oh my god, that stresses me out, so I'm gonna stay up even higher later. So it might be a better idea to emphasize the positive aspects of going to bed early. Welfare others. Try to get others to comply by telling them how other people would be hurt if they do not do what you want. Right. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that the welfare of other people is at stake. Yeah, also you have to consider what they are driven by. Because you can point this out, and what if they don't care? That is what you kind of need to consider. And yeah, even the concept of warming, like, okay, sure. Like people know that like smoking is not good, and alcohol is not good, and like eating too much food is not good, but like, does it work? Okay, example, if you're not going to be in the family photo, then we won't take one. Okay. Is that, I'm not sure if that's a great example. Why not? Try to get others to comply by making them justify why they should not. I think it's people are kind of good at justifying, even if they just come up with complete garbage. That is, try to gain their compliance by pointing out that there are no real grounds for not doing so. Example, why wouldn't you help your sister? Oh yeah, this is like a twofold here, because arguing such would make the person look bad. Your concern for me. Try to get others to comply because of their concern for you. That is, try to gain their compliance by referring to their regard for, consideration of interest in, and feelings for you. Example, if you really cared for me, then you would go to the dance recital. Yeah, I think I still would classify this negative. So if you just like guilt people constantly, then they're gonna be like, oh my god, no, I'm just gonna start avoiding that person. Alright, we're doing bonus. Foot in the door. These are the classic techniques with research starting in the 1966 by Friedman and Fraser. Foot in the door is one of the earliest and most researched compliance gaining techniques. This technique gains compliance by making a smaller, easy request than a larger, more difficult request at a later time. Or can just build up to it. The smaller request is usually one that would be widely accepted without scrutiny. The larger request is usually the task or goal wanted to be completed. Yeah. And keep in mind, these are salespeople, often so. So they are strangers. Anyone who knows you might have an edge. Effectivity. Friedman and Fraser thought that after satisfying the smaller initial request, if the person was now forced to, then they must be the type of person who fulfills such request. The smaller task request should relate to the larger request and not be trivial. Yeah, you often see this, that, you might be like signing up for the tiniest thing, then like, okay, it's a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, like, and like, yeah, then you like, oh my god, what have I committed myself to? For the putting the door technique to be successful, it must generate the self-aware, I'm the kind of person who follows this type of request. Yeah, but that's kind of like appealing to the identity. You're also getting more accustomed to just saying yes, I suppose. But ultimately, they are kind of like taking advantage of the good nature of those who were kind of possibly vulnerable to this. Okay, let's go faster. Door in the face. So essentially, like making a big request, then making a more reasonable one. And you see this quite a lot too. Oh, let's go. Guilt. One of the reasons the door in the face is such an effective technique is because people feel guilty for refusing to comply with request twice, especially with a much smaller one, I suppose. But of course, it depends on how guilty they are feeling. Disrupt, then reframe. DTR was first introduced by Barbara. Okay, fine, we don't need this. This technique states that a person will be more likely to comply with a request if the initial request or pitch is confusing. The pitch is immediately followed by reframing or a reason to comply with the request. Oh yeah, that's interesting. So the clarification is taken as acceptance, I suppose. Disrupting the couple by saying 800 pennies instead of $8. The waiter is able to increase the likelihood that they will buy the steak dinner. Dump and chase. Persistent has a high probability of annoying the target and creating a negative interaction which could be viewed as nagging. A way to avoid this would be rejecting the target's objection to your request by asking why not. But wouldn't that piss them off even more? Then forming another message to overcome the second objection to gain compliance. This technique is called dump and chase. Yeah, but I would argue in this case, this would work a lot better on those who have weak wills. Anyone with a stronger will just be super pissed off. The mechanics of this technique are urgency and guilt. When the repeated message is presented to the target, it may be perceived as urgent, thus making it seem more important and more willing to comply. By creating a sense of obligation in the request, the target may develop guilt if not willing to comply. That's why I'm partly not a big fan of guilt. At least others guilting you. That's kind of what I mean. Just one more was developed as a way to make a donation seem more important. To use this technique involves using the language just one more to gain compliance. This technique is found to be most useful in instances regarding volunteering and donations. It seems as the last person to help will be more rewarding than the big one of the first or those in the middle, due to expectation that the requester will appreciate the last person more than any of those who complied previously. Really? For example, do you want to buy this car? I need just one more sale to reach my quota this month. I don't care, I'm not buying a car for that. I did just one more to myself when I used to play video games. If the target finds that the requester is lying or being deceptive about being the last one, it will create a negative outlook on the person and the organization that he or she represents, even though losing some of the effectiveness of the requester could state that they are close to the goal or almost there. Okay. But here's the catch though. They are saying all of this to you to get you to comply, right? Anything outside of direct request that we have here, they're all trying to get you to comply. Every single one. Anyhow, I'm gonna highlight positive altercast, which does not seem to be commonly known, but it is very often used. A good boy would like this video.